All right, let's kick it off. Jim, sounds like you got some good news for us.
I think so. We had another release yesterday and want to give Liran an opportunity to walk people through what's new in Fortify. Also want to remind everyone of the fact we're in October. Everyone knows what happens in October. It's Oktoberfest, but we've now we've stolen October based on the fact that it's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and October is now Fortifest month. So hopefully everyone is now using Fortifest and doing everything they can to win 3 of those awards that we've got coming up. Everyone has to be in by the 31st, and then we're gonna announce November 18th. Is it, Michelle, or 16th?
16th.
Okay, so November 16th we'll announce the winners.
Jim, so I have to ask, if I don't win Fortifest, does it mean we go into Festivus for the rest of us?
I like it. As a huge Seinfeld fan, I really like it. So I don't know. We might have to do something around Festivus.
Yeah.
Because also happens in December. What happens in December? Liran, what happens in December?
They can't give them a chance. Give others a chance to see if they remember.
Yeah. Any partners remember what happens in December?
I think you have a new release coming out in December.
We do. Want to expand on that, Andy?
Well, see, that's where I lose it, because it was made in passing 2 weeks ago, and I was counting on this.
Call your lady in the Philippines. She has it.
Thank you. Well, remember, she's a call girl, so I'd have to. There you go.
We'll give you a hint, Andy. It rhymes. It rhymes with gizzard.
Harry Potter's one.
I gotcha. All right, so I'm sorry, guys.
There it is.
The app wizard.
He's the winner.
Mike's
Good job.
got it.
There
Mike's
you
got
go.
it. App Wizard comes out December. It's going to be a holiday gift for everybody, and we're looking forward to it. But in the meantime,
What does he
Mike
want?
wants to know, what do you think?
I'll send a hat.
Mike,
do you have a hat?
Do you have the hat yet, Mike? If
I
you
do
don't
not
the
have a
hat-
hat.
Tell him
I
to
did
win
not
something,
get
he has
one
to
at
come on
that
camera.
Okay,
All right,
so
I
Mike
will connect
doesn't have a hat, so let's get him a
I
hat.
was just kidding.
No, I have a lot of hats. I'm happy to send you a hat.
Yeah.
I'll take a hat.
All right,
Okay,
we'll connect
awesome.
after this.
Okay, cool. So Andrew, with all that said, should we just segue right into Liran so he can go through the
Let's talk.
release?
Let's see what Liran's got. So brewing and exciting. I saw a screenshot of it, so I'm excited to see it.
All right, thank you all. I'm going to share my screen. Which screen to share? It's a tough choice.
They're also
All
good, right?
Say what, Jim?
They're all so good. All the choices are good.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there. So can you guys see Fortify right now?
We can.
That's great.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for confirming. So that major release yesterday had a couple important things that I'll highlight here. And the biggest one is the DLPs, right, which are data loss prevention policies. And when Ben Jones started working here, I think within like the first 5 minutes, he basically asked us to get these DLPs in here. So Ben, this one's for you and the entire MSP community. I'll talk about those, and I'll talk about some additional visibility. We had a couple of frantic support requests come in. What happened to the info button? Where's the info icon? It's gone. I can't get all the information. So what we've actually done is we've enhanced it with this question mark icon, and it has a lot more information than we were previously providing. That previously available tooltip information is now available for you right here. Same exact information, but we've also added this applied configurations, which has made life easier for us just on the testing side of the house. This one specifically is a collection, so it's doing a bunch of different things. And if you want to see specifically what is happening here, you can click on this and it'll take you to the right place inside of Microsoft.
Hey,
So-
Liran,
Yes,
so that's a question mark there to the left.
yes, it is.
Can I, Jim, is it okay to be bold and make a recommendation?
Please.
Could we do like a light, I'm thinking a light bulb for like insight versus question mark, which could be connotated to help, because it's really fascinating what you show. So I see it more as like, hey, this is insightful than it is a question. Am I wrong?
Sure. No, I think you're right. And icon picking is more an art form than a science at this point. So yeah, like
I just, look, the lady from Philippines just chatted me and said, I think that's better. So I was just going with what she said.
all right. So yeah, we can definitely make that change. That's an easy change for us to make. But let's get into the DLPs, right? So when you go into Fortify, and one quick note, the data that I'm about to show you is rolling out as we speak. So you should see these things inside of your tenant, if you don't already, within the next 24 hours. So if I type in DLP and your tenant is correctly licensed, so I did some research into this yesterday, and I believe you need an E3 or an E5 to have DLPs, but since it's Microsoft, it's never quite that simple. If you have a grandfathered plan type of situation where you have DLP, you can probably have it, but checking the latest Microsoft pricing page information, it's E3 and E5. So if you don't see this, that's probably the reason why. You can check it by unchecking this and then checking the minimum license here. But we started off with the domestic DLPs, or the United States-based DLPs. There's quite a few DLPs, and we wanted to kind of get started and then listen to our MSP community to figure out whether we should do UK or Canada or like whatever you guys ask us for as far as the next set of DLPs. But let's take a look at one of these. So if we look at the HIPAA one down here, we get a description and we have a link that takes us right into Microsoft, right? So this is where the DLP would live once it has been activated. So you can see what that looks like. And if you actually create the policy, you have to go through this 7-step process to actually to do this. But in our case, we're going to do it very quickly, right? Very easy to deploy this across multiple tenants if you do want to apply the Microsoft HIPAA DLP. And then you can also check out the user impact here. So this will spell out exactly what your users should expect if you were to roll this out for them. And just I'd note that the description and the user impact are both works in progress. So if you have suggestions for how to improve those, we'd love to hear them from you guys. But basically, I think that this will give you guys a competitive advantage, right? Where rolling out these DLPs, and I asked Ben to kindly speak to us about being a former MSP and actually having to do this, like what this means, and he'll follow up shortly after I finish here. But you can quickly roll out these DLPs, which, as Ben explained to me, are very time consuming to roll out. And you can also manage this fairly easily, right? Where I only have a singular tenant here inside of my test environment, but you could do a quick search like I just did for this. And if you have 100 tenants here, you could do select all, and then you could say apply, and apply this action across 100 different tenants and save yourself a lot of time and a lot of headache. So those are the DLPs. And again, based on your feedback, we'll be adding some more in here. The next thing I want to show is if we go to ongoing actions, the biggest questions that we get is sometimes these things get stuck And how do I fix it? What do I do? So we quickly realized that we need to do a better job of giving you the information that's required so that you can understand what's happening here. Now, one interesting point of note is that the Microsoft Teams related ones, based on our data, those get checked every 30 days, which is kind of interesting that those only get checked every 30 days. But if I look at this one, I can hit the question mark, which will soon to be a light bulb, and we can see exactly what the status is. So, right, I get these 3 progress dots that explain to me what the status is. So I can see it was applied, and I can see that 6 out of 6 users are not registered and protected with MFA, and I am not getting points from Microsoft on this. So I can get the additional details. We're reflecting the same information here. We're giving you the details here. So 6 out of 6 users. So this policy, this recommended action rather, is ensure MFA is enabled for all users in admin roles. Okay. So why is this stuck? Well, I applied this earlier today, and I have 6 out of 6 admin roles that are not registered and protected with MFA. Down here, you can see the applied configurations, and we're providing next steps in terms of what to do when this occurs. And we're also giving you, we have a small bug here. This should say dismiss action. We'll get that corrected shortly. But if you so choose to undo this or dismiss it while it is an ongoing, you'll be able to do that as well, right? So to summarize, we now have DLP recommended actions that you can deploy, and we've also greatly enhanced the visibility that is provided in terms of what the status is, what exactly is taking place, what the applied configurations are, and what are your next steps. Do we have any questions on this?
I think we have at least one in chat. Find that. Mike asked if multiple policies can be in place.
Well, why don't we transition that over to Ben? Ben, can you take that?
Yes. So short answer, yeah. You can have multiple policies. So when Fortify was just initially pushed out, it was just doing PCI DSS compliance, looking for credit card information. And I told our team there's so much more we could do that DLP offers. And so with Fortify being a little over a month old, and they're already pushing all this information out, this is amazing. This will really help you guys. I don't know if any of you have ever been through the DLP wizard, but it takes you quite a while just to implement one policy. I mean, we're talking, I spent probably 30 minutes to an hour just fine tuning everything. And this, just with a click of a button, is going to save so much more time. And this really benefits you because if someone did get into your environment and they're talking, please change my ACH number, please, use this credit card number, and you'll be able to notify on that. Whereas we don't have visibility on the insides of your emails that your clients are sending. This does, and this can see if there's somebody talking about things that should be either encrypted or taken offline. So,
Andy's got his hand up.
Yeah, I was going to say, and thank you. This is looking phenomenal. Now I'm thinking about a report that would work on the pre-sale piece of this. In other words, hey, we're investigating a customer and we want to share with them not only what the alerts are happening, but if we utilized this information and gave it as a report that says, here is potential leakage occurring for the policies, be it digital right. I'm sending out information. I can't think of the word right now. And that this licensing, and this would make a difference in your compliance. This would make a difference in your security and reducing your liabilities, because now we're actually beginning to add some value over and above, hey, you're not secure, or you have all these untethered links. This is actually beginning to speak towards much more urgent matters, in my opinion. So that's what I was asking.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really good. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. I was going to make a comment on the reporting side.
No, I think that's a really good point. These should appear in our reporting today, but the licensing on this is a bit more tricky. So we'll have to figure out how to bake that into sort of an upsell type of situation where you can show them this and say, hey, you guys are a healthcare shop and you really need to have the HIPAA DLP in place. And in order to do that, we have to take you up to an E3 or an E5. And then at that point, put the computer away and explain why this is so important.
Well, I'm going to say why SaaS Alerts is so important. This is the pre-sales piece that I'm talking about. Hey guys, you don't have this covered, or do you have it covered outside of Microsoft? And we can then have that discussion around this. How are you addressing this aspect of data loss prevention versus the next?
Got it. Thank you, Andy.
Cool. Yeah, definitely a risk and regulator type conversation. Do they understand that piece of what the regulatory bodies will do if that information gets out in a breach?
They're looking in a world of hurt here. At least $50,000 and possibly a year of dealing with an auditor.
And the great thing about DLP, I don't know if you guys know, but not only does it do email, but we're also looking in like SharePoint and other parts of Microsoft and letting you know that Bob's storing a list of social security numbers in an Excel document.
That's great.
Yep.
So just curious, since you're talking about the DLP piece, it would be solely for the Microsoft, not unless, let me ask you this, Ben, let's just say, to make my life easy, I'm sharing something in Teams, obviously Slack, I'm assuming would not be covered here. Or can it see that it's leaving SharePoint or some other source in Microsoft going to a third party messenger, where it's out of policy?
So currently with Microsoft's capability, it can do Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams chats, and it also says on-premise repositories, but I don't think you go that far. But at least the Teams and OneDrive. It doesn't really, and I don't know if and it also does Power BI if you're doing that, but I don't know that it will monitor connected applications if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, it's more so. I mean, yes, but it also is. And last thing, a comment I'll make. It's huge from a policy, like to be able to again. Andy is going down that conversation. These are the business conversations. Hey, you have a policy, that says you can't, you should not be sharing, patient data in your Teams, and you send X over to, this coworker. Right. I mean, there's really important stuff to have those conversations or, can it be shut? Do you want to put a policy in place where we shut down Teams now? And just stop this behavior, period.
Yeah, it really helps you narrow down where your important data is and how people are storing it in their organization.
May I ask one more question? And maybe this is tied to the app piece coming out in December. And that is, what about apps that people add into Microsoft 365 and having these type of policies apply to those apps when appropriate?
Like what kind of apps?
Well, I'm thinking, what if someone said, I'm going to be using a third tier backup piece from my Microsoft 365, and I'm saying this, and they have no way of vetting that customer. And what if that's one way that they could get at all this data, and it would be showing up in a back door, so to speak? In other words, verifying that the apps that people have approved in their Microsoft instance are actually have a decent credibility score, have a that they're being used, that they really are what they represent to be.
Yeah, just a way to view application permissions is something I've thought about too. Because some of these enterprise apps have way more permissions than they need. It's like loading your app on your phone. You're keeping an eye on that. You should be keeping an eye on your enterprise apps.
So not being aware of what what the actual functions that you're going to be publishing in December, I just thought I'd post that out there.
I think
Is
that's
that-
one of the Fortify rules we're working on too, is to require admin consent for applications that are being loaded. So you're just Bob can't go and load whatever app he wants to just because it makes it easier for him to sign in.
Yeah, where my head is going is, what if there is a supply chain breach and it happens to be one of the apps in my Microsoft 365?
Yeah.
Should I be alerted on this? Should I be able to restrict its access? Should I be able to pause it? How do I deal with those situations as they come up?
Chip, you want to jump in on this?
Yeah, you're talking exclusively about enterprise apps. You're not talking about OAuth apps like Slack. Someone could use Slack, but
Yeah,
you're talking about enterprise apps specifically.
I'm thinking anything in Microsoft 365 that we can add in as a enhancement to the workflows. And so I'm basically saying, should there not be, we don't have a gatekeeper for that. You're being really good about data flow out and in. Now, how can we deal with the people that are the organizations that we partner with and kind of make sure that we're safer there too? I mean, that is an evolution.
To clarify, basically, someone that's using Microsoft OAuth using OAuth to other applications.
That would be one. Or is the application really doing what it says it's doing, that it was added? In other words, you might have, I'll use QuickBooks as an example. I added a backup version to QuickBooks and they ended up shutting down this particular app. And so I had to make sure I turned all that piece off. I'm perceiving that app evolution is going to occur here. It's going to be credible one year and may not be credible the next. It could be reputational risk. It could be, that someone bought this and had some other intent for it, or it's not needed any longer. How do you one review all the apps that have access to my 365 data that have value and should have that should still be there or not be there?
Yeah,
so I'm just throwing that.
I've got two comments for you, Andy. One is we already have a development project in our queue for the report side to list all of the OAuth apps that are being plugged into either your Google or Microsoft tenants. So that's already a project that's underway. You're making me think about enterprise apps, and I think the farthest we could go with this would be providing a similar list, a report of what enterprise apps are connected into Azure AD, into the domain, the tenant domain. It would be pretty far out of scope for us to take on the job of actually validating the functionality of those enterprise apps. That's something that Microsoft does and needs to continue doing. When you build an enterprise app, you have to submit it to them, unless it's one that you build for yourself and only keep it in your own domain. If you're allowing it to be published outside of that, it's actually Microsoft who handles that validation process.
Where I was going is it accessing sensitive data that it shouldn't necessarily? In other words, is that something that could be addressed that would help me kind of have a watchdog protecting me against potential supply chain hits that come through a third party into 365? Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
So we got another question here from looks like Eric.
Yeah, so Eric, you want to come on and talk about yours, or do you have a microphone?
Sure.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, I was just wondering so once if we apply these DLP policies, what do we look for then? Would we be getting alerts through SaaS Alerts, or does that just, it's been a while since I've gone through the DLP policies. I think before, the options when you did it in Microsoft was to have it email you or something, or email the tenant compliance person.
Eric, that's a good question. So SaaS Alerts already does pick up policy alerts. If there's a DLP policy in place and someone violates it, that creates an event in SaaS Alerts today.
Okay.
But and maybe to follow up, Chip, behind that, Mike's question kind of dovetails right into it. Is it going to become a PSA ticket if you have that? Like, is that functionality enabled if you have that alert?
Yep, it all depends on whether you've set it to medium or critical, or by default, I think they come across as critical. Obviously, partners make different choices about that. Some drop alerts down to low level, and then they handle everything through respond. So, but by default, any compliance events come across as critical.
Okay. Good. Other questions?
A follow up to that. So yeah, I was looking at the alert severities and I was searching for DLP and didn't see them. But so do they come across as custom compliance event?
Yeah, they'll come across as either
searching now. Maybe that was a keyword I need to find.
So compliance events come across, they're one unified type in our backend, and they'll system compliance events, which are Microsoft sort of stock events, and then there are custom compliance events. There are, you're capable of actually creating your own policies around data loss prevention and other compliance, and we pick up both system compliance and custom compliance events.
Thank you.
And then is it Wickus? He makes a comment that supporting the I just think it'd be my only question to you, Chip, is that going out of your swim lane to a degree when you start looking at everybody's APIs, and are they are you the police? Is that
That's what I was trying to convey to in answer to Andy's question. I think the report is something that we can and should do to list all of the enterprise apps that are built in. But it is different. An app does what it says it's supposed to do and stays within the confines of the permissions that are granted to it.
Yeah, right. Like here's what we see, right, Chip. Then it's up to you to vet, whether it's doing the right thing or not. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, when you go through the process of publishing an enterprise app that's to be used by other tenants, which is one of the things that we've had to do, Microsoft is the one that actually vets that your app is doing what it says, what you say you do when you make that application, and is staying within the boundaries of the permissions that are granted. The permission granting piece is important because you really can't build functionality into an enterprise app that tries to grab permissions, that tries to do things that are outside its permission scope. It actually breaks the app, so it would throw errors. Google is even more forceful about how they go about vetting that. They actually have an entire team of people that go through and look at the code. We had to go through that on the Google side as well. Microsoft, I think, it does most of this with automation, checking to make sure that your app's functionality doesn't try and extend out beyond the permissions that are there.
I think I know you guys got to drop in a minute, but I think one of the big things that, in terms of risk is, and I don't know how to, stay in touch with this, Chip, but is an app bought? And let me explain what I mean. There's been a significant number of instances where a threat actor will buy an app and then start doing nefarious things with that app because it's quote unquote trusted and deployed widely. So
that's an interesting one.
Yeah, that's the one that, so Jim, you guys got to drop by.
Yeah, we got to drop. So if you can take it the rest of the way, Andrew and team, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
Good deal. That's exciting stuff, Liran.
Yeah, I hope that it really does a much better job of really explaining 3 key questions. What is this thing going to do? Right? Description, user impact, and then over here, why is this stuck and how do I fix it? And it doesn't look like I have any. I want to show you one more. But for those policy collections, which are a combination of a stack, right, of different recommended actions, I don't have any I can show you. It doesn't look like, but we actually have a little plus icon, and when you click on it, it'll expand and show you what's underneath. It doesn't appear here. It will appear here on our next release, probably early next week. But that's also here as well. It's all about just additional visibility.
Great stuff. I mean, fantastic for business-led conversations. So, all right, Michelle, I know we talked before, Jim talked a few things in your marketing stuff. Did you have anything else? I know you
Yeah,
did.
I just thank you. I just have two quick things. We did talk about Fortifest already, so that is good to go. And I just lost here we go. We have office hours with Ben and Anthony coming up. They will be every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, and it'll be starting on Halloween. I'm going to send you the link to the landing page in chat. There we go. And Dana, I think she's on the call. She's encouraging costumes on the first call because it's Halloween. So break out your best if you're so inclined. I think I have a couple ideas, but I'm gonna be there just for the costumes. And then the second one is we have a new playlist on our YouTube channel. It's called Gettin Techy with SaaS Alerts featuring Ben Jones. And Ben has created several rules, and he's going to keep adding to them. So you can check those out. Ben, do you want to talk about a couple of the ones that are on there? I know you've posted on Reddit. They're pretty cool.
So I'm going to try to do at least like one a week. So they're just rules that I've kind of come up with that I've seen out in the wild and things that are popping up in the news. And with our office hours, that's kind of the things that we'll discuss is what you guys have been seeing, and are there rules that we can design that will help you guys prevent attacks. One rule that I made that we'll be releasing will be monitoring events for your clients when it comes to with PowerShell. So if someone successfully connects to your client using PowerShell, or your client tries to navigate straight to the Azure portal, that's not typically your thing that your average user will do. So we want to alert on that. So
That's awesome. Then it's actually dovetails nicely into what I'm going to show you guys. Quick, Michelle, if you can look at show of hands or just in chat, maybe a yes or no. Are you familiar with Microsoft's annual digital defense report? Because that's one of the things we're going to talk about today.
Hey, Andrew, sorry to cut you off. Adam needs a few minutes, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no worries. Adam, go.
He's sending me chat messages about Fortify getting all the attention again.
It always does.
Bye.
Tell you what. So as I've mentioned on a few calls recently, we are working on our first mobile app, and we are getting very, very close to release. That said, we've had an internal debate recently on some of the options for push notifications. So specifically what we're talking about, and I will share my screen here real quickly. Specifically what we're talking about is this section here, where today we're talking about SMS alerting, where you'd come in and you can put in multiple phone numbers that are going to get the alert for the respond action. The mobile app is going to allow us to add/replace push noticing in here instead. One of the things that we've been talking about is, obviously you could come in here and put Liran's mobile device, Adam's mobile device, Ben's mobile device. But from my experience in the MSP world, there's typically an on-call tech in your MSP. And I've been bouncing around the idea of inside our interface being able to say Ben is the on-call tech this week. And in these rules, rather than selecting a specific person, you select a label of on-call tech. And then there's just a place in our interface somewhere where each week or month or however your rotation works, you can come in and say the on-call tech is Liran. And then basically all of the respond rules would auto update because you're sending them to the on-call tech rather than a specialized person or a specific person. So Mainly, I'm just looking for, is it worth us building that on-call feature in day one or soon to be, day two of the mobile app? Or is this a feature that I've dreamt up in my mind as being useful, but is not really? So I don't know if that's a chat thing or whatever of yes on call or no, won't use it.
No, Adam, I do like the idea because that actually blends right into the way we do things with our MSP. The only thing I would say is I would like a primary and a second, or a pecking order, primary, secondary, or tertiary, something like that, that doesn't rely potentially just on one person. So if the way our voicemail paging alerts work is the primary will get paged for 30 minutes and then the secondary, and I'm the third. So if after an hour it's still not responded to, I end up getting it. And that's when I get pissed.
Right.
But,
yeah, so you're looking for a tiered system, which,
Yeah.
we always developed in our stuff. I think that's probably more than what I'm talking about for this
Okay.
release. But it's definitely something to think about. So what I did here potentially, though, as a maybe interim piece would be when I set the on call, you could actually have two names that are inside that label rather than just a single person. And granted, I'm not timing them out, but I am at least sending them to multiple people.
Even so, hey, listen, worst case for me is if I want to do that, I have the ability of routing it to my on-call system and letting it deal with it.
Mhm.
So either way, I could probably do that. And, that would, depending on what you do, will depend on how we use the field. But I do like the labels of one or more people because that might make it a little bit easier for consistency.
Yeah. And so you can, without me making this on-call thing, you could do that in the respond rule anyway by specifying, 2, 3, 4, 5 people. I think you would accomplish that. I think what I was trying to make simpler for the partners and for you guys is, if you are rotating people like an on-call, then you're not going to have to go and update all the rules in one go. But from the chat window, it sounds like, so far the people that are saying yes, I haven't got a no yet. I'd love to have a no if there is a no.
And Adam, what about in having a unique way to reach the ticketing system, the PSA, and then allow us to have workflows in the PSA route this stuff? So I'm suggesting, go ahead.
You could do that today. So part of respond is you can send an alert in, which will create a ticket, and you could have any workflow you want in the PSA, tied to any on-call rotation thing that you've got.
Well, what I'm perceiving is that this is an essential alert, and it's after hours, and they haven't responded through the app. I'm saying have it escalate from your app saying, hey, look, I haven't gotten a response. This is now going into a critical workflow rule that could be triggered based on a unique email in that condition, or a unique API call at that point, that it now triggers this workflow that we would define in Autotask, ConnectWise, or whatever it is. So that was the thought. That might address your how to make it more complex by saying, hey, I can just tie this into the PSA and then it can start to do its thing.
That's an interesting thought. I think, Liran, that would probably entail us just creating an alert when a respond action times out. You could create an alert that says, timeout on, non-response or something, and then you guys could key off that in your PSA.
Yeah.
That might be a way to do that. I'm always trying to make things easy. So, all right. So it looks like yes, from the 4 votes, 5, 6 maybe votes I got, it's all yes. I don't have a single no. Liran, do you want to put a no in there just because you were the boohooer on this particular feature, or?
No, but I will ask you to tell me what the percentage is of 4 out of 38.
We're at 100%, Liran.
I think it's closer to 4%. But
Liran, remember he was in sales.
Oh, Andrew got it.
there it is.
Right. So
You wanted one.
All right.
No, you guys know, right? This is part of our process. Before we make decisions like this, we discuss internally, and then as a tiebreaker, we bring it here. We ask you guys.
All right. So I
Great
think
stuff.
aside from Andrew's no here, we'll consider this a yes then.
Is Andrew a subscriber? Let's be clear. Does it really count?
I think it's a different Andrew.
It's the different Andrew.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not
Fair
Andrew.
enough.
Oh, it is. I thought that was Morgan. All right. So
No,
Andrew.
no. That's
No, everybody knows
Yeah.
that Andrew Morgan doesn't count.
So actually the Andrew then in chat, can you give me the reason why this isn't a good idea?
He might have just been humoring you.
I think he
I
was
mean, that's
just
fine. I
I
just
was
love-
like, no, just move on.
All right, move on. I will hand it back to you, Morgan.
all right. What happened? Let's see. 1 sec, Eric. What happened to the update to the default file modification limit? Liran, does that
It's in progress. I think it's either this release or the next one, but we definitely have it on the board. When Chip and Jim allow me to hire an unlimited number of developers, we'll be able to move a lot faster, but I'm still advocating for that.
Good stuff. All right, let me jump in here real quick. If we don't get through all of this today, I will certainly, number one, I'm sharing my whole desktop, which I know for me is very problematic if you've been on SaaS Alerts calls, but I'm doing it because I want to show you that Microsoft every year comes out with something called their digital defense report. And if you think about it, no one in the world has their vantage point in terms of telemetry because of the stack that they have, right? And so I wanted to walk through this and share with you guys, because like some of the things that we talked about today, for example, Ben, in terms of creating like, auto respond, or I think I'm probably butchering the terminology, but respond rules, if you will. It really highlights things that you can do that are actionable. I'm not going to read every data point here, but you don't have to look too far to know that they see a lot of threats. Being the owners of Office 365, Azure, and all the fun applications, right, that are globally used. Some things that I want to highlight on this, Liran, this is really cool and timely, is that they put out like their top 5 things after they get through their executive summary that could and would stop most attacks. And this, by the way, is nothing new in terms of, it comes back to basically hygiene, right? We keep getting hit over the head with the basics. And that's typically when you talk to incident response firms over and over and over, that's what we miss. We miss the basics, and that's how a threat actor takes advantage. But kudos to SaaS Alerts, right? Liran, I just want to kind of highlight here, and Ben, maybe feel free to chime in from the SaaS Alert side. But 2 out of the 5 are being monitored for now in SaaS Alerts, right? So they're talking about MFA. And again, if you put in that DLP type license, Liran, we can start looking at data movement and where your critical data lives. Now, granted, this isn't going to look at things that are not Microsoft specific, being SaaS Alerts, but I'm sure that, Liran, roadmap wise, you guys will start to maybe look at, again, maybe roadmap down the road is, hey, is this thing moving into from a Microsoft application into Salesforce or into Slack or other type areas. Okay. So what were the key developments in 2023 that they saw? This is a big one again, and this is important because Verizon's data breach report in essence backed this up in saying that, this year, there was the first year we talked about this ad nauseum, that there's no discrepancies or discernment between what threat actors are doing. God bless you, Gary. Between enterprises and SMB. And in fact, you know, the moniker of, and we've heard this from our customers, we have nothing, you know, threat actors don't have anything we want, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, it's actually gaining speed in the direction of smaller businesses because they aren't prepared, and it's easy to exploit them, and it's automatic. They can use automation to exploit via bots, et cetera, et cetera. By the way, just quick point here, my intention of this was so that you could use this for like a lunch and learn or something like that. I kind of took the highlights of this 60 or so page report for you guys, but I will put the URL in there for you. This is also interesting that ransomware, and again, no shock here, but this is where, you know, we talked about the city of Dallas the other day, right? Well, you know, that service account and being an unmanaged device is how that compromise occurred, and we're seeing those types of things. We certainly know that password-based attacks spiked just a little in 2023, as we've talked about with access brokers. Questions so far, or any of those comments that I've made?
I'm really grateful that you're helping connect all these publications and how they can help drive awareness, not only to us, but to our clients.
Yeah, my pleasure. This is some people, you know, like to, you know, look at sports and things like that. Andy, this is what I do for my hobby. It's pretty pathetic. No, kidding. So when we look at, you know, again, the top 4 attacks, though, again, Liran, Ben, this is again where, you know, if we think about the SMB world that MSPs live, so much of this is where we can leverage SaaS alerts, because, you know, 3 out of the 4, right? Correct if I'm wrong, you guys see anomalistic behavior in these areas. Is that a fair statement?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So now, in terms of password-based attacks, again, a little sarcasm here, right? We only have about 11,000 attacks per second, right? And you know, again, Microsoft, puts in here, as we know that, you know, the majority of these, when they pull back the layer, is, you know, MFA wasn't enforced, right? And we're going to see that even MFA, as we know it, and we've talked about, you know, should we be just going right to, if someone doesn't have MFA today and we're trying to get MFA in, should we be just going to phishing resistant MFA with YubiKeys, et cetera? The answer is absolutely we should, because threat actors are creating a multitude of different ways to bypass traditional MFA, right? So whether it's MFA fatigue, whether it happens to be man-in-the-middle attacks, which we'll see, and a whole host of other types of proxying technologies, redirects, et cetera, they're getting pretty proficient in bypassing traditional MFA, which is shocking, as we've talked about, because we know that only low 30% have it in the first place. Okay. Questions on this? It talks about actionable insights. Here's some things that, again, you could, you know, just share with a customer, Andy, you know, just like, hey, I was thinking about you. I know you don't have MFA. I know you guys have pushed back. Microsoft just published this report. I just wanted you to have this. Right. Again, another shocker, think Colonial Pipeline, but north of 50% or almost 50% of VPN is missing MFA. Anybody still using VPN out there? Michelle, can you just be my eyes and chat? Okay, so I just briefly spoke about this. This is a really interesting graphic. I won't go through it entirely. And we've talked about this on the call before, but this is where, you know, because of the ability to spin up sites in the cloud, it's enabling, and the ability to do the geolocate, we've talked about the, sorry, I'm drawing a blank real quick here, but through the be able to cloak geolocation, again, my brain is fried right now, but this is a way in which, threat actors have been able to create these, they're man in the middle. Microsoft refers to them as adversary in the middle, same thing. But they do a really good job articulating of the workflow that the threat actor creates and how they get people to, move from one piece to the next and then redirect them in their phishing email. It's pretty clever, and it's not too difficult. And oh, by the way, if you just want to, their managed service is less than ours, Gary. It's only 200 to 500, 200 to 1,000 a month. And you can get that and do all this nasty stuff. All right. Insights on business email compromise. All right. So number one, again, it's tremendous in terms of the numbers when we look at it, right? You think about it, just about 160,000 BECs a day now. In terms of what we're seeing in terms of attempted compromises. Obviously, the number one reason, financial, right? And we have talked about this, that because creds are so easy to get now, because of initial access brokers, because of info stealers, etc., that, we got to edge our, again, hopefully we can do lunch and learn and talk to our clients about the legitimacy of the way the threat actors are working, and talk to them about, okay, so this is how they work, right? They get into one account and then they start spear phishing or laterally moving, right, across the environment, right? Then if I was on your network or vice versa and you send me something, I'm going to think it's you, right? It's pretty difficult once they're in, other than trying to see some anomalistic behaviors of, gosh, Ben sending it not only to me, but to Gary, and then to somebody else simultaneously, on and on and on. This is a pretty fascinating one. They're almost using email as like a DDoS attack. Has anybody seen that? Ben, have you kind of heard about this type of technique? It's pretty fascinating. It's getting into the fatigue area again, where there's so much coming at them, a user, that they would quote unquote miss something, right?
Yeah.
And then they talk about, lastly here, how it's evolving, BEC. And I mentioned this before, but because of cloud computing being so efficient, well, again, if we think about how we use it efficiently and our customers use it efficiently, well, more than likely threat actors are going to use it efficiently, and they are very efficiently. Yes, Andy.
How do you think AI is going to change the threat landscape going forward in the next year? I'd say how could we better position ourselves against exploitation driven by AI that's looked up your social media and now can actually converse with you or pretend it's you?
Yeah, well, and that gets into, so again, we can also use AI on the so this is the one side where SOC, security operations centers, can use it as effectively, by the way, as the threat actor. So it's not all bad, because a lot of the tedious, repetitive things that a security operations center does, searching and looking for anomalistic behavior, this is where AI and vulnerabilities. So it's for every plus on the threat actor side, we get a plus also on the defender side.
So if you don't have a SOC, you're SOL.
Well, hopefully you're using one per se,
Right.
in terms of, a third party, right? We know that most MSPs, when we look at build by our partner, hopefully, whether it's some type of MDR at the endpoint at least, or, in a regulated client where we're going to have logging requirements, there's some kind of use case there to support that, Andy. Won't go in depth for time with token replay attacks, but again, this is where this we do need to be aware of conditional access policies. This is where again they're talking about the use of phishing resistant MFA. Okay, ransomware. Saw a spikes come down a little bit in the mid 2023, but is in terms of what they're doing, we're seeing fairly similar type things, right? They're exploiting remote services. And again, this is goes in line with the SaaS report correctly on using valid accounts, right? And then how they're using those is through again RDP and VPN. I wish again money were no object and everybody would be on some kind of ZTNA solution and just get rid of every VPN. They are just the bane right now. This talks about the industries. The top industries are discrete manufacturing and higher ed. Makes sense, right? Higher ed doesn't have budget, right? But they have to provide services. And so once they're exploited, they pay often because, your kids are like, hey, my kid's got to learn. School districts are, they'll often negotiate to get there. And again, we know manufacturing, right? Well, why is the whole CMMC movement? Well, because manufacturing is getting obliterated in terms of things that are getting stolen. Okay, this is one, Liran and or Ben, where I need you a little bit, but they do call out right in here in the report RMM pretty prolifically. They talk about it though as a as a certainly a living off the land tool once a threat actor is in, right? So it becomes undetectable, but this is where, and correct me if I'm wrong, Liran, where Unify could come in, right? Where we see somebody using a tool that may not necessarily have the right IP. Am I correlating those things correctly? You're on mute.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm actually going to hand it off to Adam, our MSP tools RMM expert.
Okay. Adam, are you still with us, bud?
I don't think he's here. We have a call in 1 minute, so he may have.
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
Anyway,
Liran.
but does Unify do this kind of stuff, Liran, per se, at a high level? This is where we want to start monitoring our tool sets, right?
Yeah, I mean, tying the local device to the cloud-based account is exactly what the goal of Unify is intended to do and should help with catching these sorts of issues.
Yeah. And by the way, I can't stress this enough, and I'll close out. We can catch up on this again, but I do want to stress, like, look at your inventories, and what I mean by that, your customer inventories. So, for example, Eric, if you're still on, I don't know if he is, Eric V. But like, hey, if normally this customer only runs hypothetically, they only run Screen Connect, let's just say, well, we got to get into disallowing, Atera, like all these other things. We've got to put in some kind of mechanism to disallow other third-party RMMs from running in that environment, because AVs or EDRs often will say, well, that's a legitimate application. So that is where we're at. Any comments or questions at the top of the hour here? I appreciate everybody hanging in there right till the end. Michelle, should we close out here at 2?
Yes, with a song or just.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
We
you,
will
guys.
be same bat time and channel next week. Until then, have an awesome day, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Hey guys.